Hello, and welcome to the CivilTalk Podcast. I'm your host, Tapasio Althouse. If you're new to the show, this is where we explore civility and social emotional learning with esteemed guests, expert insights, and practical advice to help people navigate the world. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Zach Mercurio, a researcher, author, speaker, and facilitator whose work centers on something we talk about often here at CivilTalk: creating environments where people truly matter. Zach specializes in purposeful leadership, and he's worked with organizations like the U.S. Army, Delta Airlines, Marriott International, and the National Park Service to help cultivate cultures of motivation, well-being, and authentic significance. He's the author of The Invisible Leader: Transform Your Life, Work, and Organization with the Power of Authentic Purpose. And his newest book, The Power of Mattering: How Leaders Can Create a Culture of Significance, just came out through Harvard Business Review Press this year. Zach also holds a PhD in organizational learning, performance, and change from Colorado State University, where he serves as a senior honorary fellow in the Department of Psychology Center for Meaning and Purpose. Today, we'll be diving into what it really means to matter in the workplace, what gets in the way of meaningful work, and how to shift from performative purpose to the kind that actually changes people's lives. Zach, welcome to CivilTalk.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So to start, I always like to ground listeners in the why. What led you to become interested in the topic of mattering and purpose in the workplace?
It started with my first study when I was a doctoral student, and we embedded ourselves with a group of university cleaners for a year and a half, and we were interviewing them and observing them and trying to understand what created a sense of meaning and purpose in a job that's often overlooked. To give you an example of how overlooked, I remember very vividly, I was with this group of custodians in a break room, and a building user walked by, threw a piece of trash, it hit the floor, and they just kept walking. And how do you build a sense of meaning in that type of role? And what we found time and time again was that the people who were able to see their purpose, were able to have a good sense of self-worth, were able to see the nobility and meaning in their work, experienced regular moments of mattering, moments with a supervisor who remembered something about their lives and checked in on them, moments where someone, a building user, remembered their name and called them by their name and truly saw them and didn't just brush by them, moments in which somebody showed them compassion or a building user actually helped them clean something as they walked by. And since that study, we have researched thousands of people across almost every industry and have found that that feeling of truly feeling that you matter, that your life has significance, happens in very small moments and in very small interactions. And that led to this moment where over the last 5 years, we've been seeing more people feel overlooked. They feel invisible. They feel like they're in a room full of people, but nobody really sees them. And we started thinking, well, we have the name for that. We have some research on what creates that. And it's that experience of mattering, of feeling significant, and it can be created in small interactions. And
Yeah.
so my why is to help everybody realize their own significance in everyday interactions, to help other people realize their significance.
Yeah. I love the idea of mattering versus just being nice. How do you differentiate between that? How do you differentiate between actually making someone feel like they matter and just being nice at work?
Being nice is easy. It's passive. It's
Mhm.
easy to be nice. It's easy to perform niceness. Being kind takes work, right? Being kind means you have to get up close and actually see somebody, notice the uniqueness of their lives, notice the ebbs and flows and details of their lives. And if you notice a struggle, offering an action to alleviate that struggle.
Mhm.
Being kind is messy. And that's what cultivating mattering is. And the reason why, mattering is as an outcome of being kind is because mattering is the feeling that we're significant to other people.
Mhm.
And it is a survival instinct. I mean, we are born searching to matter. No one would be alive listening to this podcast right now if at some point they hadn't mattered enough to another human being to keep them alive.
Mhm.
To be important to another human being is our most primal human instinct, and it turns into this psychological need to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed by those around us. But it primarily results from intention, attention, and skill in interactions. The foundational element of mattering, for example, is feeling noticed, feeling that someone pays attention to you, feeling
Mhm.
that someone thinks about you when you're not there.
Right.
Um, and that's what separates mattering and being kind from just being nice. It takes skill, it takes us getting up close,
Mhm.
um, and it also takes sacrifice. We have to sacrifice our time, we have to sacrifice
Mhm.
um, uh, our space for another person.
Yeah. Mattering seems to also, from what you're talking about, seem very close to memory.
Yeah.
Remembering details, like you're saying. I think that's a really. I'm thinking of times where I've felt like I've mattered to someone, and it's realizing that this person has paid attention in past conversations and brings it up again the next time I see them, whether it be a week later, 2 weeks later, or a month later, or 2 days later, and it gives you a clue that this person is allowing you to take up some space in their brain,
Mm.
and that
We
feels really powerful and important.
Yeah, there's magic in being remembered. I mean,
Hmm.
when there's magic in having someone else think about you when you're not present
Yeah.
and taking up that space, right? I don't think there's any more powerful feeling as a human being. When we look even at the psychological research, then knowing your presence and your absence means something to just one other person.
Yeah.
And it is important to ground us in that it is a primal biological urge to matter to other
Mm.
people. Like it is built into how we survive to be important, and it never goes away. And that's why the opposite of that, not mattering, is so detrimental. The psychologist William James wrote that no more fiendish punishment could be devised that someone were to be set loose in society and remain completely unnoticed. He actually hypothesized it as a punishment, as a brutal punishment to remain unnoticed. And unfortunately, right now, I think that what we're seeing in the data in regards to people feeling invisible, people feeling that nobody would really notice if they were gone, people feeling that lonely, people feeling disengaged and completely overlooked. Unfortunately, too many people are experiencing that fiendish punishment that he foresaw when he wrote that.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like a sense of solitary confinement in public, which is
Mm.
probably worse than just being confined to like a small space where it is solitary confinement. Feeling that when you're in a group of people is difficult.
Yeah.
Um, how do you specialize in purposeful leadership? Can you sort of define what that means to our listeners and how that differs from just good leadership in general?
Yeah. Purpose is our contribution. But there's a difference between having purpose and being purposeful. So
Right.
you can like have a purpose, you contribute every day, you make an impact every day. So you have purpose by default, but being purposeful is contribution centered thinking, being, and doing. It's showing up from a contribution first mindset in the sense of how am I adding or extracting from the next interaction that I have.
Hmm.
It's all about additive. The creation, the cultivation of mattering, of showing someone their significance. For a purposeful leader, that means showing up in your next interaction. And regardless of what you're talking about, if you're disagreeing, engaging in potentially some difficult conflict, it's actually making sure that that person across from you feels seen, heard, valued, and needed in that conversation. Um, it's different than traditional leadership because, um, and it depends on how you define leadership. I define leadership as anybody who influences anybody. But traditional leadership is largely run from a transactional approach. It's
Right.
what do I want from people? Like if you think about your interactions you have, if you are a leader, if you think about your interactions you have on a daily, weekly basis, you'll find that we do things like give me a status update.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how's that going. Give me an update on your work, or I need an update on that project. We ask things from people instead of asking what we want for people.
Right.
And that transformational approach of investing in people is what makes a purposeful leader. And the reason why mattering is so important is because it is the cultivation of someone's evidence of their significance in a conversation.
Yeah.
Uh, and
How,
so it really gets into the leading indicator of everything that we say we want, which is like productivity, commitment, engagement. Those are all lagging indicators. Human energy is the leading indicator. And I think purposeful leaders invest in the contributing to regenerating that energy.
yeah. When is there a point in your work? Do you notice a pattern with leaders who reach out to you and say, this is a pattern that is happening in my business that I want to end? What is that sort of point in a leader's sort of job where they come to you for help?
You know, a lot of times it's because they see a symptom of not mattering,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know that yet. I mean, there are two. When we feel that we don't matter, when we feel insignificant, two things typically happen. We either withdraw or we
Mm-hmm.
act out in desperation. So acts of withdrawal are things like quiet quitting. We've all heard that. Quiet quitting is the inevitable withdrawal response to a human being who feels insignificant. In
Mm-hmm.
any relationship where we feel insignificant, we withdraw. We stay silent. We withhold information. We don't give feedback. It expresses as apathy
Mm-hmm.
when we feel insignificant. Or they may be reaching out because people are acting out in desperation, which is much louder, complaining, blaming, gossiping, protesting.
Yeah.
All of those actions to secure the attention you're not getting. Like, for example, negative workplace gossip, the number one predictor in many reviews on workplace gossip is the feeling that our psychological contract has been violated. What that means is that my expectation of fair treatment or respectful treatment from you as a leader
Uh-huh.
has been violated. So if I can't speak up to you, I will speak out to someone else. Again, like I will do anything, even if it's based on negative means, to feel that someone sees me and hears me. So leaders tend to come to me and say, people, we keep scoring low on engagement surveys and we tried everything. Right. So we've tried well-being programs. We've invested a lot of money in whether it's DEI programs, wage increases, perks, programs, and nothing's moving the needle. And when you look at engagement, for example, in January 2025, Gallup released their latest employee engagement report, and it found that we're more disengaged than ever, despite over $2 billion collectively invested in improving engagement through programs and initiatives. But there's a couple data points in there that are really important. One is that just 39% of that sample of 15,000 people said that someone at work cared for them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Just 30% said someone saw and invested in their unique potential. So what this really is a mattering deficit, and it can't be solved through programs. It can only be solved through interactions. So a lot of people come to me with, I can't do anything about engagement. People are leaving. People are withdrawing. People are staying silent. I can't get my people to invest. Or, a lot of like CEOs, you've heard it in the news, say people don't want to work hard anymore, right? Those are all symptoms of anti-mattering, and it happens in interactions. But the good news is, I mean, you can relearn and scale the skills to do this.
Yeah. It seems like, what's the first step that you take for these leaders to engage with their employees and to make it seem or to make it feel like they matter? Because for me, it seems like it's also maybe like a personality thing sometimes. How do you change a leader's personality as opposed to just ask them how their week is?
Right.
Sometimes like you have a great personality as a leader and you come in with your fun Hawaiian shirt on and you're just like, Have a great time, but do your work. It's like having this balance between
Yeah.
nonchalance and seriousness. And it's this balance that's hard to teach, hard to find in a personality, and hard to really find in a leader sometimes. How do you teach these traits that are important for not only the human and mattering, but also for the mission of the business?
Mm. That's a great question. I mean, I think that one of the things that we found is that regardless of personality type, introvert, extrovert, we all share the same desire to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed. I could be in a room of like multiple generations in a room of leaders. And if I say, raise your hand if you'd prefer to feel insignificant, nobody raises their hand, right? It's the ultimate uniting force. I think that one way to get people to really think about what this means in terms of a skill set is I have people think about the time when they most felt that they mattered to someone in their life or in their work. And I have them just really think about that moment, what it felt like. And then I ask them, what skills did that person use?
Mm.
And what's powerful about that is it takes this out of common sense to common practice. Because one of the reasons why this is not happening is we've called these skills soft for the last 50 years. And
Mhm.
the moment we see something as soft or simple, our brain thinks we're better at it than we are. We're susceptible to an overconfidence bias.
Right.
And so we approach it with less rigor. Um, and and I would argue that since the advent of digital communications 25 years ago, we have gotten worse at caring for people. Like if you send me some bad news, I can just send you a text with a thumbs down emoji and say, I'm sorry to hear that, and think that I've done my moral duty. I don't have to sit with you and seek understanding and show compassion. And every time I do that, every time I get out of that situation, I'm losing the skill.
Right.
Right. And so one of the things that's important for leaders to recognize is that this is a skill, and it's a skill we actually haven't had to use in the last 25 years. Part of
Right.
like your show, the way you describe your show is around social learning, right? We
Yeah.
have we have lost the social learning to care. Think about this. There are some leaders in organizations right now who've just got promoted into leadership roles where that researchers say have never had to show compassion to another human being in real time. Because
Yeah.
they can do it via Slack, they can do it via Teams chat, they can do it via all of these technologies, and so
Right.
that skill is withering. But when you get people grounded and they think about what are these skills and what do people do around you that help you feel this way, it helps to start to turn the wheels that, "Oh, this is something that I can do. This is something that I can learn." Because then I always ask, "Which one of those are you not doing for the people around you?"
Mhm.
Um, and the other thing is that I think sometimes people think that leadership is the result of big actions.
Right.
So, and we see it all the time, like on LinkedIn, people are posting, "I my big product launch, this new engagement initiative. Look at our new culture values we put on the wall." Nobody says, "Hey, I remembered someone's full name today." Right?
Yeah.
And those are the very things actually that create leaders worth following that people commit to. So we tend to like hold up on a pedestal these big actions, and we forget that leadership is the result of small interactions daily, and usually that's very liberating for people, and it's accessible in every different personality. You don't have to be an outgoing leader who wears Hawaiian shirts to make people feel that they matter. I'm an introvert on every scale imaginable,
Right.
but I've learned some techniques that align with my personality that allow me to help people feel seen, heard, valued, and needed. And I would say one of the best ways you can start doing this is to ask the people around you, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing?
Right.
And
Yeah.
really listen and do more of that.
Yeah. It really is. It's a really good reminder. I think that when you get bogged into getting things done as a leader, you really forget the small things that really make it that way. If you're building anything, you have to remember is these small drips every single day. And I think people and leaders need to learn how to slow down. I think that's really hard for leaders to do. And people who are goal oriented is to just slow down and recognize things that are making the machine work, I guess, and
Mm,
oiling it and making sure you're tending to it and understanding that these are pieces, like really important pieces to the larger scheme of things. And I think it is hard to when you're to slow down when you there's so much around you. There's AI, there's LinkedIn, and there's all these posts every single day, and it's like really hard to not get wrapped up in that. And to I think slowing down is also really important as well, and sort of zooming out on the immediate culture around you, away from your desktop, and tapping in a friendly way, reminding yourself that you're also a human, and you need
yeah,
that too. I
yeah,
think that, like, making someone matter is just as important as feeling like you're making someone matter,
absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And I think you make a great point. And this is a tough lesson to learn, but hurry and care can't coexist. You know,
Right.
you can't care for anything if you're in a hurry, whether it's a house plant, a pet, a vehicle, or a person. Like, you can't care for something if you're in a hurry, and you can't care for somebody that you don't understand. And understanding takes time, and it takes intention, and it takes skill. Gloria Marx, she's a psychologist. She wrote the book Attention Span. She's been studying attention for years. 10 years ago, on average, we could spend about 2.5 minutes on one thing. Now that
Yeah.
span is about 47 seconds. What is that? What does that do for the person in front of us? I mean, so the good news is that there's things you can do to relearn how to pay attention. That's a skill. Like, for example, one of the leaders I worked with, she had what was called a noticing notebook that she had a difficult time keeping track of her team members. She had 25 team members, all the details of their work and their life. And what she would do is on every Friday, she would write down their names and write down one thing she remembered them talk about last week or mention if they were nervous about a meeting, if a piece of equipment wasn't working, if their kid was starting a new sport, if they were going on vacation. She'd write it down. And then the next week she would look at that notebook. That's how she starts her week, looking at that notebook and scheduling. In her phone, she schedules a 3-minute just check-in with each employee. And she
Hmm.
says, "Hey, I remembered last week that you were having trouble with this equipment. Did we ever get that fixed? I remembered that last week that you were nervous about that meeting. How did that go?" And again, I could think that gets to that magic of being remembered. But
Right.
what I love about her, what she did, is it was a practice. It was a skill. Like, for me, on the top of my one-on-ones, I'm not a big journaler, so I write down on the top of my one-on-ones, "Don't forget to ask about dot dot dot."
Hmm.
All that does is it just triggers me to ask about something I've noticed about somebody, which helps them feel seen and heard. So that noting practice, that is a practice that from the beginning of time, researchers have found helps us to pay attention. And so we can't just leave it up to chance anymore. We can't rely on our intuition. We have to have some practices, some tools to relearn how to pay attention and slow down.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that is, as you're talking about this, I remember when people have done that for me, and I've noted it in my head later and kind of like paid it forward. And it's
Mm,
interesting how, like, when you notice that someone is making you feel a certain way, depending on the person, but like for me in particular, I'm like, how can I pay that forward? Like, I want to make someone else feel that way too. I want to
yeah.
make someone else feel like they matter. How can I, be the change you want to see in the world, sort of thing? Um, and what's interesting about that is what I've noticed is the ripple effect and the domino effect it has, because it starts there. And I think that leaders also need to understand too, like, it's not just this insular moment between you and another person, but it really does have a positive ripple effect in other aspects of that person's life. And that's why leaders are so important. And that's why your work is so important, because it's not just this like vacuumed in this moment. It really has like a ripple effect that's really powerful, that I think needs to be noted.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this earlier too, like mattering begets mattering.
Right.
So, for example,
Exactly.
if you a lot of people say to me, like, "What if my leader doesn't do this for me?" This is very common. I get this all the time. My first response is, "Do you do it for them?" When's the last time you checked in on how they were doing? When's the last
Yeah.
time you remembered something about their life? When's the
Right.
last time you affirmed them or thanked them or gave them meaningful gratitude or showed them how you rely on them? Like often what we expect to other people, we don't rigorously give to other people. And
Right.
there's this in sociology, it's called the norm of reciprocity. And I think this is what you're talking about. It's this norm that has kept society together since the beginning of time. And the norm is that you return a kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And but to return a kindness, someone has to start. Someone has to go first. This
Right.
is why, one of the things I recommend if someone's feeling that they don't matter is I recommend to them to, if they go to the grocery store or do an errand, to just force yourself to learn the clerk's name and learn one thing about their life,
Mm-hmm.
one thing about what it's like to be them as a person. Ask them about how they got this job. Why are they in this job? Like, what do they like about the job? And just do that. And you will feel better when you leave. You will feel better because you saw that even in that interaction, someone lit up and smiled because you actually noticed them. And then
Right.
you'll feel like, oh, wow, like my presence matters.
Right.
So it's this interesting cycle that when we show people they matter, we actually see the evidence of our significance.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that we see our significance and we believe that we're significant, and it's an upward spiral.
Right. It's also a pattern of behavior too. It's funny that you talk about a grocery clerk. I just had that interaction with someone yesterday at Trader Joe's, and I was with my stepmother, and she is so good at that. And I've thought about it, and I'm like, and I've practiced it too because I've seen her doing it. And she's also just a very curious individual, and it's interesting how mattering is so closely tied to curiosity too.
Yeah.
A friendly, genial, amicable curiosity. And curiosity just feels good. It feels like you're tapping into your inner child. You're wondering. There's this sense of awe, this sense of wonder, and it is so close
Hmm.
tied. The product of that is not only are you feeling that sense of awe, but you're also making someone matter at the same time. I remember yesterday I just had this conversation with this guy at the clerk at Trader Joe's, and we were just talking to him, just like his eyes, like you're talking about, just lit up
Yeah.
because we were asking two simple questions. Oh, you got a new place? Where is it? Where are you from? Oh, you're starting a new job, blah blah blah. And he just was so happy that someone was interested in his life beyond bagging our groceries. And I remember seeing that, and I was just like, that is such a great thing to, because I've been on the opposite side too. I've worked at cafes, and people just time and time again don't ask you questions and don't care and treat you like an automaton. So it's nice to know that there could be a break in that, and it's so simple. Such a
Yeah.
simple.
If you want to see this epidemic of anti-mattering, you go to the airport and you'll just see how many people just brush by all of these workers. Because I'm really happy I had that experience with the custodians in that first study I did like 7 years ago, because I was, one of the practices that I do is I was in a bathroom at an airport, and this guy, I think it was a maintenance worker, he was repairing the paper towel roll,
Mhm.
and people were literally brushing by him as if he was like another piece of equipment.
Right.
Nobody was talking to him, and I just said, "Hey, thank you for doing that. Like, by the way, it looks great in here. So I just want you to know that." And he literally he got mad for a minute. He goes, "What did you say?" He was like startled to be seen. And in our interviews with people in 60% of the American workforce is in frontline service work. And that experience of never being seen and never being talked to, feeling invisible every day, is the lived experience for most people right now because of
Right.
this social ignorance we have. If you just stop and you like affirm something, thanks for being here. Like, I know life is really hard. This is a hard job. Like, this like makes my day better. What was that? 2 seconds?
Right.
And his whole demeanor changed. And you talked about the awe of like a child. Like, yes. So I have a 7-year-old and he loves the trash truck still.
Oh.
And I remember this moment very vividly. The trash truck was coming through, and the guy was just, I mean, he was like slamming the trash into the back. Like, he looked miserable. And I remember my 7-year-old stood out on the stoop and just beamed at him and waved like big. And his whole being changed.
Hmm.
Like, he came down and waved, and you could tell that he was excited. But we should be approaching people like that. Like, oh my gosh, like, you're here.
Yeah.
You're doing this thing that enables me to live my life.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and reclaiming that sense of curiosity and becoming interested in one another again, I think, is what we're called to more than ever right now.
Yeah. Reclaiming curiosity is really important. I think that's a big takeaway for me and maybe our listeners too, is reclaiming that over time. How do you think your definition of mattering has evolved over time and over
Mm.
your experience with making people matter? Are there any lessons that you've had to relearn and sort of just help adapt over the years that you've done this?
Yeah, the biggest learning for me was that mattering people feel that they matter in moments with people. This idea of interpersonal mattering. Like, there's other forms of mattering, like societal mattering, mattering to society at large, mattering to organizations. There's even cosmic mattering, which is a cool
Yeah,
concept. It's like
interesting.
mattering in like a spiritual sense. But
Huh.
when researchers look at well-being, interpersonal mattering consistently predicts greater well-being than almost any other form of mattering. And I think that that's pretty obvious why it's so close to us. It's tied back to that biological instinct to be significant to somebody. But what has come out of it is that when we ask people that question, when you feel that you matter to somebody, what are they doing? Again, we didn't hear any big actions. It was all these very small interactions. Sometimes they occurred decades ago that people remember, that nudged them on a different path. And then one of the things that was especially interesting to us is, in the last 10 years, there's also been a lot of talk about how does the definition of mattering play into the definition of things like belonging or inclusion, which
Right.
have been top of mind as well. And I see it like a three-legged stool, and belonging is feeling welcome and accepted and connected in a group. Inclusion is feeling that you can take an equal active role in that group. But I can feel like I belong, feel like I'm included, and not feel significant to individuals in that group.
Mm,
And one of the things we've also found is that one of the missing links has been this experience of these everyday interactions in which we feel seen, even though the organization or the community is saying that I belong, is helping me feel included, making sure I'm represented. I can still feel like you don't know that I'm a caretaker for a parent who's in the hospital. I can still feel that you can't name my unique gifts relative to other people. So mattering is to me, as it's evolved, is like the most elemental psychological need that needs to address. The original title of my book was Mattering Comes First.
mm,
And it's really because I had written a book around purpose. And
mm.
this is not, I don't know if you can do this in nonfiction, but I actually think that this book is the prequel to that book, because I realized also that if purpose is our contribution, you can't contribute if you don't believe you're worthy of contributing.
Right.
Yeah, it's very hard to do things like find your strengths if you don't believe you have them. It's hard to share your voice if you don't first believe your voice is significant. And so the second way that mattering has evolved for me is that I've really seen how it is the leading indicator of everything else. I mean, you wouldn't have done much of anything today, gotten up, had a drink of water, if at some small level you didn't believe that your life was worthy of your unrelenting energy.
Right. How do you, I mean, you talk to leaders a lot, but what about the individual? Because you talk about like, when you're thinking about your job and the things that you do to wake up in the morning, how do you get yourself to make you believe, even maybe falsely for a day, that you matter? I think there's a lot of like, there
Yeah.
needs a lot of self-motivation and self-mattering. One thing that you said in your book, I love this so much, and I thought about it, I wrote it down in my notes, was about self-actualization.
Mhm.
And you said after food and shelter, the journey to self-actualization is ironically largely reliant on others in the form of safety, love, belonging, community, and esteem building. Um, it was a concept by Maslow, which was
Mhm.
surprising. But Maslow realized, you write in your book, is there's no true self in
Yeah.
self-actualization. We actualize one another and
Uh-huh.
develop one another through relationships, which I thought was so fascinating. But going back to what I was kind of in opposition to what I was saying earlier, but contrary to that, how do you wake up in the morning and understand that, like, maybe I'm not going to see anyone today, but I still want to feel like I matter because today is a crap day. You know,
Mm.
how do you get yourself to feel like you matter, especially if it's like a day, maybe a week where you're not coming into contact with the people, you're working remotely, or you're just in a certain place in your life.
Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to do all this personal work to believe that we matter? I mean, because that. So one of the things that I find interesting is that we've taught a whole generation of people to help themselves based on Maslow's self-actualization theory that he actually disputed. And the problem with we talk about how people can optimize themselves. We even use this phrase, uh, and I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but we use this phrase, "You are enough."
Mhm.
That is biologically, sociologically, and psychologically untrue because we're interdependent. I mean, the only reason why you're here right now, the only reason why anybody's here right now, well, is because of some software developer or IT person who's made sure your Wi-Fi connection is working or whatever you're listening to this on. You're only here right now because someone kept you alive. You're only here right now because you have the infrastructure to live a life in a community or society because of
Mhm.
others. So this idea that you can develop your own sense of self without others is has really put people on a difficult path, because if I were to give you a graph of like self-help books published and loneliness, anxiety, and depression rates, they'd go up together like this. We have more access to personal development resources than ever, and yet people are more anxious, they're more depressed, they're more lonely than ever, because you can't get out of the fact that we're relational. So the first thing that I would say is, yes, you can come to believe that you matter on your own, but it takes others to show us how we matter. So the first way I would say to believe that you matter is really hold close and invest in the relationships with people that help you feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. We know those people in our lives. Sometimes we've lost touch with them, but hold close to those people and nurture those relationships and invest in those relationships, and identify those. I think now, hopefully, after listening to this, you can identify the difference, right? Is that someone who makes you feel that you matter actually sees you, they think about you when you're not there, they remember you. Um, the second thing I would say is do it for others. Like, seek out, if you're not going to see anybody today, seek
Mhm.
out some way that you can interact with somebody and remember something about them, uh, affirm them, say thank you to them. I mean, there's got to be something today that you can do. And if there's not,
Right.
go back and look at times where someone sent you that email that reminded you of your significance. I have what's on my phone. I have a story bank. So if somebody shares with me some way that my work has impacted their life, I put it in on my phone, like I paste it into a notes thing. And when I'm like get that feeling of like, oh, what am I doing here? Like nobody reads this book, nobody cares about what I'm doing. I remember that like a question that I posed to somebody changed how they interacted with their 13-year-old daughter, which really happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we have to put things in our environment that remind us of our um, significance. The other thing I would say to you is this: that one of the custodians in our first study, she taught me something amazing that I'll never forget. We asked her what was the most meaningful part of your job, and she is a cleaner in the dormitories where students stay. And she said, it's Monday mornings when I go in and clean the bathrooms. And so me and the research team were like, what? That sounds really like unpleasant. What's going on? And she said, it's because every time I go into this bathroom, I say to myself, I'm cleaning this bathroom so that these kids don't get sick.
Mm.
She had developed over time this so that mentality, like to be
Mm.
able to link whatever it is that you're doing with its inevitable human impact. So if you're having trouble finding, how you're making an impact today, you think about that next virtual meeting you're having and say, I'm doing this so that what? Like there is a human being who's living a life as vivid and complex and as important as your own at the end of that call who's spending time with you, right? For some reason. So I'm doing this so that what? And continually remind yourself of that can help you see how you're adding value, even if it may not seem it.
I love that because it also makes you accountable for how you show up.
Yeah.
How you say certain things, whether in a rude way or in a positive way, you're also understanding there's a consequence, whether it be positive or negative, to your important actions. And I think that people forget that duality. I am saying this so that, or I am saying this and then this will happen.
Mm,
I think it's a two-way street in that your actions really have a lot of power no matter how small or big they are. Like the
yeah.
janitor and having, basic cleanliness is someone's job that they work hard at. Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and it's a good reminder that what's purposeful isn't always pleasurable.
Yeah.
And
This is
I think that so often we seek pleasure from our day, instead of seeing the purpose in our day,
that's a
which
really
is always there. And I think that we've again been taught to seek pleasure for ourselves, but it's ironic because all of the studies on happiness and fulfillment in the long term talk about relationships, giving to relationships, investing in others. There's a lot of like deathbed studies in psychology, and nobody's ever said, "Oh man, I wish I did like 5 minutes more of meditation." Right? They talk about how they wish they spent more time with people that
right.
who they love. They wish they had reached out to that friend they lost in contact with. They wish they hadn't held on to that grudge with that person. They wish they had forgiven them. They wish they had said sorry more. All of these things are the things that get at that basic human need to feel that we matter in relationships. And
Yeah.
we miss that. We miss that when we only search for pleasure from our days and not learn the skill to see the purpose in our day.
Yeah. I think it's important. I like what you said earlier about purpose isn't always, fun, pleasurable. I really love that. It's it's a reminder that we shouldn't be pleasure seekers. We should be purpose seekers because purpose is painful sometimes.
It
And
is.
it's okay to feel that it's uncomfortable. I mean, maybe that's why meditation is so important because it allows you to, meditation is in conjunction with mattering because, meditation allows you to sit with those discomforts and sort of be okay with
Absolutely.
that. But that's a really good reminder.
And
Every,
yeah, I'm not saying that the personal work is important, and
yeah,
meditation and mindfulness. All of this we're talking about is mindfulness of the interaction you're in. I mean, so that type of training is absolutely critical.
yeah,
But the direction to which that work goes and the relationships with which it goes is what actually creates long-term fulfillment. And I think that that's and pleasure is good too. I mean, I like going to concerts. I like good food. I mean, I like espresso. All that's great, but it only lasts for the moment that you're in. Whereas purpose and contribution tends to last longer, and it's always accessible.
yeah. It's so true. I'm a big fan of David Lynch, and he wrote a book about meditation. And I've watched a lot of his interviews, and he talks a lot about meditation and mindfulness and purpose kind of later on in his career when he was getting older. But it seemed to me that leaders who I look up to and artists who I really look up to, their amazing artwork is just a byproduct of their life of mattering and purpose. Like it just seems to like they just happen to be a director who really is focused on meditation or focusing on themselves and being good people and letting things go and accepting death while you're alive, which sounds crazy. But a lot of the times it seems like byproducts are what draw people to them, which is their art, but really talk to these people and dig into their one-on-one interviews and their books outside of their art, you realize these people are so focused on meditation and mattering and purpose. Like it's, that's the real juice for these people is what I've found.
And I think some of the most influential artists don't focus and use their time on trying to get attention. They use their time on how to give attention.
Right.
And I think we're I think for leaders and individuals, we are taught to get attention at all costs. But actually what creates fulfillment, what creates art, what creates purpose is what we give attention to.
Right.
So think about your day. I mean, think about how much time you might be spending trying to get attention, but then think about how much intention you're spending on what you're giving it to and who you're giving it to.
Yeah.
And that's what leaves a legacy. That's what brings contribution, but it's a little bit countercultural.
Yeah. Well, striving to get attention is so much energy. It's a lot of energy to like get attention from people. It's exhausting, it's like that energy to get attention could be used to build something purposeful where, build it and they will come, if you really want attention, just,
if you want attention, give attention
to the thing that you're building and people will just come to you,
or the human beings around you.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly it. People around you. It's just this, you talk about cosmic mattering, which I totally am
yeah, we could get into that at some point.
Into for sure. And I believe that and I feel that, where it's like you create microcosms of your own little community of mattering and it creates this like cosmic energy. I know to some people this might sound frou-frou and I totally get it. I am a spiritual skeptic through and through. But I think through feeling that and going through the motions of your life, you see patterns. You can see a pattern of the more value I give to the people around me and the more gratitude I give, the more I receive, and it's just cosmic interference that happens. And it's like waking up on the right side of the bed and having a good feeling day. And then you notice it might be confirmation bias, and I might be attributing that to cosmic energy, but, maybe there's a relationship there. But I think that creates that mattering to things around you creates a sort of like cosmic effect where it expands.
And there's also a scientific explanation for that. And it is the fact that it's called the complementarity principle in relationships. Same as the norm of reciprocity. Like, for example, if you never ask about me in my personal life, say we're like, you're a leader, you're my leader or something like that. And then if in our interactions over the next couple of weeks, I start asking you and I start taking an interest in you. Research shows that over time, you're going to start asking me about my life. You will start complimenting and mirroring what I'm doing. And that's that energy, that upward spiral of energy that happens when we start mirroring one another. But in order to mirror other people, you have to get close.
Right. Yeah, you have to get close.
You have to get close and take the space and time.
Right. And also feel a sense of safety from them too,
Yeah.
So you work as an instructor in Colorado State's psychology department. How do your students respond to this work? And, how do you interact with young people and what are their reactions to this? And what kind of hopes and maybe fears do you have about the next generation of leaders?
Mm. I teach primarily graduate students. So I spend about 30% of my time as a fellow there. And then I'm out with leaders in organizations. And the classes I teach are actually working leaders who
Right.
are coming back to get a graduate degree in positive organizational psychology or organizational development. And one of the real opportunities is that I think this has helped name something for people that they've experienced, but they never had a name for.
Hmm.
Like they will say things like, "Yeah, like I feel like I belong. I feel like I'm included in my work, but honestly, I don't feel like anybody would notice if I was gone." And it helps them name the power of interactions. I teach organizational psychology, and what I always tell my students is that never forget that organizations are simply individuals who organize, right? And what that means is that the organization itself is comprised of interactions. And so, one of the great insights for people has been to get out of this idea of culture as some big thing and systems as some big thing, to think about systems as a series of interactions in which today you have an opportunity to impact. The other thing that I think I'm seeing when people reflect back this to me is this is very empowering. You do not need anybody's permission, your organization's permission or approval for how you show up in your next interaction. We all are told how much we don't have power right now. We don't have systemic power. We don't have positional power, but you always have interactional power.
Hmm.
And what I'm hearing from a lot of my students is that, gosh, like I've been taught that I'm not at this position yet, so I don't really have power yet, but I do have power in my next interaction.
Right.
And so that reclaiming of interactional power is important. What I do, my concern, and I think I mentioned this earlier, my concern is that we don't know what's been happening to us and our skills to care.
Hmm.
Um, many people do not know how to show compassion to another human being in real time. Many people do not know how to ask a meaningful question beyond "How are you?" or "How was your day?" and actually really listen. Many people do not know what to do if they notice someone's frustrated and they don't have the unnatural leave button at the bottom of their virtual meeting where they can just disappear, which is unnatural. Um, and so I do worry that uh, we're not realizing how much work we have to do to reskill ourselves to care for one another again. And I'll add into this one more thing: this age of AI. People finally started asking me about AI.
Mhm.
This is all going to be more important because AI can do our tasks. It cannot take moral responsibility for them. Like it
Right.
can AI could do this podcast, but it can't be accountable to the human beings who are listening.
Right.
So that moral accountability, that ability to build trust, which is impossible without care, that's going to be the I think the most in demand skill. And so I'm
Hmm.
hopeful and I'm concerned, but now that we're naming it, we can do something about it, which is exciting.
Yeah. These are big concepts, especially when you're talking about AI and caring and teach trying to teach humans to relearn compassion. I think it's difficult. I think compassion, when you think about it, it has gone to the wayside just because we're inundated with information. This is an era of information.
Mhm.
The internet is just like teeming with, my computer often has like 30 tabs open. And I'm just like click, 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 just like information, 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 and it's just like I think when you leave your computer, it's so difficult to not like tabify things in your life. It's just like
Yeah.
this is a human and you need to sit with the nuance of that. You can't just close out of this window, and it's like even for someone like me who was born in an age when the internet really wasn't a thing, but you get sucked into it, and I think that's, my brother and sister are a lot younger than me, and it's like I see how their brains work, and I'm just like, how are your children's brains going to work? When you have children who are inundated with the internet, and will compassion and care be difficult for them? How is there going to be? Are there going to be classes where you're teaching compassion and care?
I hope so. I mean, but actually, the educational system is going the opposite way because the educational system is now trying to teach people what to do. It's taking a skills based approach when it comes to like occupations. So we're teaching people what to do as a human being and not how to be a human being. Less than 2% of the world's population gets any formal education on listening well, for example. It's an
Yeah.
estimate by researchers. So, um, we're going to have to start giving people the social situations in which they can learn to see, hear, and value people. We're going to start having to give those back, create spaces where people can actually learn how to give feedback to one another. Starting in kindergarten, I mean,
Mm.
students should be keeping a noticing notebook of things they notice about their peers that they really love, and then they should be telling them and thinking about them when they're not there. Kindergartners should be giving feedback to each other on their work. They should be affirming each other. They should be collectively solving problems all throughout, the K through 12 system. So this is a big undertaking to reconstruct the social learning needed to relearn the skills to care. But again, it can be done. I am worried about the people who just say, "Oh, people need to put down their phones," because putting down our phones is not going to heal our disconnection. What we do when we put down our phones will.
Right, exactly.
And if we don't know how to connect, I can not be on my phone all day long, but if I don't know how to connect, I don't know how to care, then it's not going to make a difference. So there's
Yeah.
something that we've been missing, and I think we're getting it. I think it's starting to bubble up. You're starting to see it like in the World Economic Forums, like most in-demand skills by 2030. Most of them are human skills now,
Yeah.
like empathy, compassion, technical skills. For the first time in that report, got outpaced by human skills.
Right.
So it's
I guess you
we,
don't really
we
realize what you have until it's gone. you know, you're like, huh.
yeah, you don't realize the toll of taking away the social learning opportunities in which we had previously learned to care for one another.
Right.
And those are being taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. These soft skills. I think I love the term soft skills, but like you said earlier, like these are soft skills, but like you said earlier, soft does not necessarily mean easy to obtain. You know,
No.
like I play
No.
guitar. Like a lot of the times, the hardest thing to learn is usually the slowest song. Like
Yeah.
learning a fast song and like la 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 is really easy, but the hardest ones are usually the songs that have more silence. You know,
Mm.
it's the same thing with soft skills.
Mm.
It's a soft skill, but it's hard to learn. And
And if you're playing guitar or any instrument or playing any sport or doing anything specialized, you have to come back to the fundamentals.
Mhm.
Right, you have to practice and hone the fundamentals. I mean, that's why we warm up
Right,
on
exactly.
instruments, right?
Right,
The
right,
same is true with the craft of being in relationships, the craft of leading other people. The fundamentals of being human are seeing, hearing, valuing people. And if we're not working on those, if we're not getting the social reps, and if we're not honing those skills,
right.
then they will, they'll fade away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to think about fundamentals in whatever you do. Fundamentals aren't just for art, it's for everyday interactions too, when you're talking to your boss or you're talking to your neighbor or whatever.
When's the last job you had where the initial training was, okay, let's just re-examine the fundamentals here of how to see a person, how to hear a person, how to show people that they're valued, right? When I ask people, one of the questions I ask leaders when they ask me to come in, I say, first, tell me how someone learns how to be a leader, because a leader is a separate occupation. So what
Yeah.
are the skills and how do they learn those skills? And I'm often met with like silence. Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? Like, we just try to promote the right people or the good people who are good at their jobs.
Mhm.
Um, and we forget that leading and influencing one another takes a separate set of skills that must be learned and honed as well. Um, but oftentimes we just leave it up to chance or just leave it up to being a good person. But again, intuition doesn't scale in our lives, in our workplaces, habits, skills, fundamentals do.
Right. That would be a fun class, intuition. an intuition class.
Yes. Oh, I know.
It would be a really fun class to take, like
Yeah.
intuition in leadership roles.
Hmm.
It's just demystifying, because I think that when you say intuition, you're just, a lot of people just sideline it
Yeah.
and don't realize how important it is. And you're right, it's not a scalable thing. It's not like you can
No.
put it in a number and be like, okay, this person's intuition is off the Richter. It's just, it's a feeling, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's important, I think. And a lot of leaders who I have looked up to always talk about intuition and
Mm.
feelings. And I think it's important to demystify that and to sort of claim importance in that.
Yeah.
But one last question I like to ask every guest who's on this: with everything going on in the world and with everything that you're doing and in your life, what's one personal practice that really helps you stay grounded and connected to the work that you do?
Mm. I would say that practice of just everyday noticing of the everyday people in my life, even though it's uncomfortable for me as an introverted person. I make it a point that when I am stuck at that one lane road with the construction sign holder who's telling me to stop, I just to give a wave and say, "Hey, thanks for being here," and seeing what happens. So that's the habit for me, that small thing. Or, when the FedEx driver leaves the porch, instead of just like waiting for them to leave, which my introvert self wants to do, I'll go out and I'll just say, "Hey, I didn't catch your name. What's your name?" And then they'll be like startled. And then I'll be like, "Oh, I look forward to seeing you next time." And those little things make a difference. And then I have kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and if they tell me something, like if we're out or something at a restaurant and they said, "Oh, I really loved this food," I go, "You make sure you go tell the waitress that, okay?
Mhm.
Tell them how much you enjoyed this, and thank them." And then again, mattering begets mattering.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting for the future generation in your. Yeah, it's true. It's like parents are a big influence on their children, so it's parenting
Yeah.
matters, and that's going to have a very calculative effect on your children. I mean, I learned the curiosity thing from my stepmother, so it's just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that begets everything. And so sometimes you don't even need a class. You just need a good mentor. You need a good father or a good mother or a good leader in your who's raised you.
And
So
ask that question, after this podcast, ask that question of someone in your life, "When you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing?"
right.
And you'll be really surprised at some of the little things they tell you that you may not even think are important, but are everything to that person.
Right. That's so key too. There's empathy in that, because it's like what makes you matter does not make other people matter. you
Yeah.
know.
There was a
Um,
there was a journalist, just really quick, that asked me this actually the magazine, the article never got run, but we had this great interview. And she said, "Do you have any advice for me? I have a 13-year-old daughter, that I'm struggling to connect with." And I go, "Just ask her like this question, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing?" I didn't think anything of it. A couple weeks later, I got this long email that she said that she asked her daughter that, and her daughter said, "Oh, Mom, it's in the car when we're driving to school, and you're just listening to our favorite songs together, and we're just sitting there." And it was sort of an emotional experience for me because the woman said, "I that was like a burden on my day. That was a chore just I had to do to get to work, but it was everything for her."
right.
Just sitting, listening to her favorite music in silence, being with her daughter was what mattered most to her daughter, and she thought it was just part of her routine. Shit, I would have never known that if I didn't ask that question.
Yeah. It's powerful. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. It's like a love language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
touch, whatever it is, or whatever they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Uh, Zach, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your knowledge and your wisdoms on mattering. It's been a huge pleasure having you here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for being here. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Civil Talk Podcast. Really appreciate you being here with us. If this conversation sparked something in you, we truly invite you to learn more about what we're building and to share this podcast to anyone you think who might benefit. Civil Talk is also more than just a podcast. We're a platform on a mission to empower the leader in each of us through emotional intelligence and responsible AI. Through our Org Talk tool and evolving digital tools, we're helping organizations measure, track, and strengthen civility in real time. To explore these tools and past episodes, visit civiltalk.com, where you can also find a link to Dr. Zach Mercurio's work, also at zachmercurio.com. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and remember, you matter.